Hey everyone, it's Josh, Z50 on the Minis, Orlando, Florida. This is kind of an offshoot from another video series. This was more focused on the cleaning process, but this engine was, I started the videos, does it run? And it ended up running, but it had a leaky valve stem seal on the exhaust. So I talked to the owner and we're going to do a top end rebuild, but keep the lower end together. It seemed to be running just fine, shifting great. But I use this as an opportunity because to make a video on this subject is because this engine was completely spray bombed with silver high temp paint on every surface. So he wants it to look good. We don't need to go all the way and tearing it down and doing the whole rebuild process. So I'm going to show my tips, kind of products that you can use, and let you make your decision of how you want to approach cleaning some engines. So again, this one had a paint layer on it, but the same process is applicable if you just have a bunch of grease and old dirt buildup on an engine and you want to get the center case cleaned up, the cylinder head cleaned up, which is raw aluminum, and kind of make the aesthetics look good. So let's go ahead and just start the video. Talking with the owner, instead of a full rebuild, tear down, we're gonna just take off the top end, refurbish it, kind of look around a little bit to make sure I don't have to dig further, but I think we'll be okay with just a top end refurbishment on this one. So this thing has been sprayed completely with a silver paint, like a rattle can paint. And my first step before I tear down the top end is to use the opportunity of a sealed engine to get this silver off the center case area and get all this cleaned off, get this all back to bound. The bare metal aluminum, which it should be, it shouldn't have paint on it from a factory standpoint. So we'll get all this cleaned. I'm going to do a couple steps. First step is I'm going to try and break down this paint to make it a little easier, because I'm going to use a media blast process out here. I'm going to use some soda, baking soda. So we'll kind of go over kind of the tools that I use and then some products that should be useful for you guys. Before we step through the products and the cleaning methods, first thing importantly is to get your engine closed off. So I pulled the manifold, but I put some thick aluminized tape up here on the intake manifold, got that nice and sealed. I got my crankcase vent nipple sealed off, and then I shoved some paper up in the port just in case that baking soda kind of gets airborne and shoots up in there. For me, I'm not too worried about it because I'm pulling the top end, but if you're not pulling anything off, you want to make sure all these areas are sealed. I don't think you'll have too much of a problem at these seals at your kick shaft and your shifter shaft, or over here behind your secondary output shaft seal. But if you want to throw some tape in there and even seal it up however you feel comfortable, that might be an area that could get a little bit back through it under pressure. But for the most part, you should be safe. It's going to be a sealed system. I like baking soda because it's water soluble, so after you blast everything off, spritz it down with some water and say goodbye. So it's biodegradable too, so it's not like an environmental issue to use this product, as opposed to if you were using like a glass bead or metal oxide or something like that. Then you got residual overspray laying all over the place, but baking soda just washes away. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is use a degreaser. I like Super Clean. They're a really good product. That's the brand, Super Clean. You can buy them at automotive stores. I think Lowe's has it, Home Depot, even Amazon. But that's a really good degreaser to use. I've had good success with it. I do use Dawn also. In this video, we'll use a Dawn. This is a professional grade version of their Dawn. I got this off Amazon, so it's their heavy duty degreaser. It's much more concentrated, I guess you could say. So I'm just going to use it at full concentration in a squirt bottle to help get all this grease pushed off and give me a better chance of getting baking soda to do its job. The other thing is you can use is, I like Jasco. It's non-methylene chloride formula, so this is not the strongest stuff you can have. I mean, the old school paint remover had methylene in it and it worked really well, but it's pretty toxic. So what you'll find on the shelves these days is a non-methylene, but this Jasco brand, which I got from Walmart, or not Walmart, Home Depot, is way better than most brands that you can buy. So this is a good paint remover that's user friendly. Still need to wear gloves, but it's got, like I said, the non-methylene formula. Another trick, if you don't have an air compressor and soda blaster or Dremel tool to polish your aluminum, is a aluminum brightener product, which is an acid. And this I got at O'Reilly's Auto Parts on the shelf. You can get it online from there's many brands, but this one was local, so I bought Purple Power's aluminum brightener. A lot of people use these for pontoon boats, aluminum. You spray it on, it's an acid, give it a few seconds to do its job on the aluminum, and then you got to rinse it off thoroughly. So, but this will bring some brightness, some sheen back to your aluminum. Don't leave it on too long or it could turn it a darker color. All right, so first product up on this for the experimentation is the Dawn High Concentrate Professional Degreaser. I'm gonna go ahead and spray the whole engine and see how it reacts with the paint. I wanna see if it starts to remove it or not. Cleaned off and let it dry for a minute. But you can see that works good. Air blew it dry with a compressor. Next step is let's use the paint remover from Jasco. Let it sit for about 15 minutes and then we'll see how good of a job it does. It says be generous with your thinner or remover here so it can do its job. I'm running out of daylight here, so it's about 10 minutes or so, but it's definitely doing some work. I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not because it wasn't appearing to do anything, but definitely give it a little time to work. So at this point, you can use some mechanical scrubbing with maybe like a kitchen Scotch-Brite or something like that, or get a brass wheel on a Dremel. So I'll go ahead and use that. I'll probably use a Dremel, a couple methods, but I need to get this stuff off so I can get to my bare aluminum. Next morning, got better sunlight. It was getting a little dark while I was doing the paint removal chemical from Jasco. I'm not really impressed with it as far as its ability to remove this kind of paint from a high temp paint. I guess it's just a little more durable than what that chemical can do. It did break it down a little bit, but I'm going to show you some of other options, like using a Dremel tool and some abrasive media that can be effective too if you don't have an air compressor and soda blaster set up. So let's take a look at those options with the Dremel-like tool. Your Dremel tool, this is a Milwaukee M12 rotary tool, but what I'm using, we'll do both examples here. This is these are both like cheap off-brand options on Amazon. Probably find them on eBay too, but this is like a Scotch-Brite wheel. These have different grits, but you can buy a bunch of these little Scotch-Brite pads on the actual spindle here. So we'll use that first, and then we'll come back and try in a different area with these are brass coated. This isn't pure brass, this is steel with a brass coating on it. So we'll use these brushes, these wheels, to knock off the paint and see how that looks too. So it knocks this stuff off really quick, and it actually gives a nice, Scotch-Brite brush finish. So the technique with this would be to follow one motion to keep your kind of the polishing effect consistent. You don't want to be all over the place and making all sorts of different movements on the aluminum, because then you'll see a bunch of travel marks. So next up is the brass wheel. So be careful, this stuff flies everywhere. Put glasses on. These little wires will just start flying off the spindle here. So there's the two finishes. So this brass wheel, the aluminum that we're exposing there, once it hits the brass wheel, is kind of a darker finish, and that Scotch-Brite really actually definitely outclasses the brass wheel method. This is going to be good because that Scotch-Brite is going to be more difficult to get into areas that you need to get in here. This is a good tool to get into the nooks and crannies on this output shaft area. At least you could probably use this tool to get an initial clean. You know, if you were doing the cylinder head, you can get down inside of all these radiator channels here, and then come back with the Scotch-Brite and kind of do that final finish on it. So those are actually really good options. I'm pretty impressed with the Scotch-Brite option, because that does look really well. So now I'm going to use the soda blast gun. I can't remember if I said it yesterday, but I'll put a link in there of how I modified that gun to work better and flow better. So I'll put that link for the video that I made on that. But we'll go ahead and use the soda blast gun, air compressor, and the baking soda media. So I spent about, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe just doing the soda blast, getting in all the nooks and crannies. But this is what the aluminum looks like after the soda media. I went ahead and did the cylinder, even though I'm going to vapor hone this. I just wanted to show what it would look like. This took off the paint, got in all the thin areas. But also, if you just had a natural corroded aluminum, that's what it would look like after you finish with soda media. So it's not a bad look. It's definitely not vapor hone sheen, but it's much better than what oxidized looks like. There's a clutch cover, took all the paint off with it. So it's really effective getting all the nooks and crannies. You know, it's just a good way. The only disclaimer on it is, again, you need an air compressor, but you also have to have moisture control, because you can't have any moisture getting in that line. That's going to clog up the soda, and it's not going to shoot out correctly. So you got to take that into consideration also, as a good way to remove moisture from your air compressor line. Alright, so I spent about, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe just doing the soda blast, getting in all the nooks and crannies. But this is what the aluminum looks like after the soda media. I went ahead and did the cylinder, even though I'm going to vapor hone this. I just wanted to show what it would look like. This took off the paint, got in all the thin areas. But also, if you just had a natural corroded aluminum, that's what it would look like after you finish with soda media. So it's not a bad look. It's definitely not vapor hone sheen, but it's much better than what oxidized looks like. There's a clutch cover, took all the paint off with it. So it's really effective getting all the nooks and crannies. You know, it's just a good way. The only disclaimer on it is, again, you need an air compressor, but you also have to have moisture control, because you can't have any moisture getting in that line. That's going to clog up the soda, and it's not going to shoot out correctly. So you got to take that into consideration also, as a good way to remove moisture from your air compressor line. So I'm going to do the acid too next. Because I want to show you everything that is available as options. So we'll do some acid spray brightener on some of the aluminum just to show what that effect is. The cylinder head is an example because I'm going to vapor hone it to the finish I need. But the directions on these typical aluminum brighteners, acid-based brighteners, it says on the back of this thing to leave it on for 30 seconds to let it do its job. But you might want to put it on, give it about 10-15 seconds, and then rinse it off. Kind of see the effect of the acid on the metal. Don't get it on chrome, it says, or highly polished aluminum. It's going to affect the polish. It will strip clear coat off of aluminum. So this is really used for raw aluminum. So that's the effect of the aluminum brightener. I don't know if you can see there is some darkening of the aluminum. I would recommend using mix some baking soda in with water to neutralize the acid as you spray it off. But it took me a little while to get the acid off, so I think it got darker than it would be obviously if you deluged it and got it all off in 30 seconds. But each casting, metal, formulation or whatever you want to say, alloy, this is a little darker than this. So results may vary, but I could tell you that gives it a congruent finish. So that might be an option for you if you want to use an acid-based cleaner. For the final finish on this engine, after the soda blasting, I went back with the Dremel tool and used these Scotch-Brite type wheels. If you look at the center case, I came back with those knockoff Scotch-Brite wheels that you can get on Amazon and eBay. The brown, maroon, and green little wheels that you can use on the Dremel. I did go back and did my best to kind of keep a nice brushed look, a consistent look on the center cases. So that is a nice final touch to the whole process, is to use those wheels. I guess I would highly recommend that be part of the process, and it's not a major requirement investment wise from the tool, the Dremel-like tool, and the actual consumable product. I brushed everywhere. I ran it across every surface that is on the center cases, and I focused more on the areas that were gonna be visible once the engine's installed. So I think it came out pretty nice for what it is. I mean, if you want to take it the next step, you could always use some sandpaper, hand sand things, get crazy with another little rotary tool with little cotton wheels and rouges. But if you're looking for just like a satin finish, I think this is going to be a very good finish and an easy way to do it. I went over the side cover that's going to be painted. I just knocked down any high scar marks or anything on here, so that will be painted silver. I did test it out on the cylinder head so you can at least see. Didn't put a ton of effort into this area, but if you spend some time, you can get that Scotch-Brite wheeled out and make it look a lot better. It does have a little rough casting, so it's a little more challenging to get a ultimate finish on it that way, but it is doable with the Scotch-Brite wheels. So we'll just go to my final opinion of this process. And come to a conclusion of what my opinion is on the product and usefulness in this process of cleaning an engine that you're not going to disassemble. So the greaser for sure. I like the Dawn, it works. Again, I use Super Clean also. Have good success with either of these for just removing the initial layer of grease. Not super impressed with Jasco. It is the better of the brands that I've used, but again, it doesn't have that methylene in it, so it's not really like a high performing paint remover, especially against some of this high temperature paint that's on this engine. It did help soften up some areas, but it wasn't like a consistent lift off of paint. so I still had to work it and blast it hard to get it off the aluminum. So aluminum brightener, the acid, it's a lot of professional polishers that do the trucks and the oil trucks and big gas tanks and stuff. Some of them like to incorporate this into their process. This helps like kind of alter the surface level of the aluminum, and it gets them to a more consistent final finish. Not necessary. I guess it doesn't hurt to have it, but in my opinion, the finish that you get off this is it will kind of darken the aluminum, and I think it will give you some consistency to go and polish off of, but it's not really a necessary product to have in this array. This stuff I do like. It works good. Obviously I was able to strip paint off with it. I was able to do my final polishing, so it's kind of a minimal investment to get this kind of setup running. Get yourself a Dremel type tool, buy these, and you can get some good finishes on these aluminum cases, and you can get down actually in the fin areas on the cylinder head if you want to polish that out or give it a brush look. This is very useful if you have a compressor. I know it's a cash outlay to buy a big compressor and a moisture management system, but if you already have it, this tool is not expensive. You can modify it, get yourself some soda blast, and this thing will get in all the nooks and crannies, make the process go, you know, much faster to get the engine down to a bare aluminum. And then like I showed, I came back and improved the soda blast finish with this 3M Scotch-Brite on top of it to kind of make it a lot better of a brushed look. So I think overall this doesn't hurt to have it all, but if I had to pick the cheap route, cost effective, a little more time intensive, but still the end result's going to be the same. Degreaser, 3M wheel, style Scotch-Brite wheel on the Dremel. That would get you the job done. A little more time involved. If you got this guy, you're going to be able to knock out the heavy hitting cleaning really quick and then jump on this and finish the job. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, that you get an idea of how to approach cleaning these old vintage engines without having to tear them down. You know, I would recommend pulling the engine so you can get all the nooks and crannies. You definitely don't want to be spraying this stuff with it on the bike. You got to be careful with it getting down into the windings of the stator system. You don't want to be using this if you have an engine on the bike. So go ahead and pull the engine and do the thorough cleaning and then put it back in the bike if possible. Otherwise, I mean, it's doable, but that's my opinion. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully it was helpful and gave you some ideas of how to approach this cleaning process. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Thanks. Bye.